Hosted by u/J Suze Rancunier. My wife, 32F, and I, 27M, experienced some relationship problems caused by an ex-boyfriend of hers that I believe are still affecting us today. For some context, we first met when we were studying overseas and working part-time together at the same restaurant. I'm from Australia, and she is from France. After a few shifts together, we became friends and eventually started dating. I was 19, and she was 24 at the time. We dated for a little over 3 years before moving back to my home country, and 2 years after moving, we decided to get married. The problem started when my wife and I had just gotten engaged. We decided to do the obligatory social media announcement posts informing everyone about our exciting news. It was about a week later when I received a message request from an Instagram account I didn't recognize. I saw that my wife and the person followed each other, so I thought it was one of her old school friends or something and decided to accept the request. By then, I had gotten over 100 messages from my wife's friends and family I'd never met, congratulating us, so I expected this message request to be more of the same. Instead of a congratulatory message and an introduction as to who they were, I was sent a bunch of screenshots of messenger chats that were in French and a message that followed, saying that I should read these conversations to know how my fiancé is. I felt something was a bit off, but still believing this person was a family member or friend of my wife whose English wasn't very good, I decided to translate the screenshots to be able to respond to them. Naively, I translated them, thinking they'd just be some cute messages, only to read conversations between two people. The topics included recounting intimate encounters, the intimate acts they had performed, boyfriends, and how inferior Asian guys are to white guys. I am Asian, by the way. I sent a message back to the person asking who the messages were between. They replied, saying it was my new SLT wife, and sent 3 explicit videos. I was in shock, and immediately, thoughts that she had cheated on me filled my mind. After sitting for a while and trying to comprehend what had happened, I decided to watch the videos to try to see if it was actually my wife in them. Later that night, after my wife had fallen asleep, I decided to watch the videos, believing there would be no way the woman I had been living with for 5 years could do something like this. But to my disappointment, I confirmed that all the videos were of her. The first 2 videos appeared to feature the same guy, and the third video featured a different guy. To say I was furious was an understatement. I had literally watched the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with having intimate acts with not one, but 2 other guys. I decided I needed to confront her, thinking that she had cheated on me with a bunch of other guys. I wanted her to explain to me why she did it. After staying awake through the entire night and not being able to wait anymore, I woke her up at 6 a.m., showed her everything that was sent to me, and asked her to explain what this all was. She immediately started hyperventilating and then began to cry. She kept repeatedly apologizing and begging me not to leave her and was like this for a good 10 minutes. After managing to calm her down, she explained that she never cheated on me, that these videos were taken before we had met, and that she didn't even know they existed. She also tried reassuring me that the messages were between her and her best friend and that they would share everything about their lives with each other. She said the things they talked about were from so long ago that it felt like a different person had written the messages. She kept repeating that the things she said in those messages made her feel deep shame and regret. It was so embarrassing to her that she ever acted and spoke like that. To try to prove she wasn't cheating, she showed me the chat history between her and her best friend and found the exact same sections of the conversations and the messages between them. They were from long before we had met. She also explained to me that the guy who sent me the message on Instagram was her first boyfriend from high school in France. Apparently, he was very emotionally and mentally manipulative during the time they were together. To get any sort of affection or praise from him, she would do what he wanted and let him do whatever he wanted to her. She said she didn't understand how he was able to get the screenshots or the videos that he hadn't even taken. We eventually came to the conclusion that he had hacked into her account somehow. She said the 2 guys in the videos were short-term Korean boyfriends from when she first moved overseas. To say I was relieved was an understatement, but I still felt disgusted when I looked at my wife. Over the next few months, I tried pretending that everything was okay, but I couldn't get over what I had seen. She was a completely different woman in my eyes. I know body count shouldn't matter, but reading the messages about how many guys she'd slept with really bugged the crap out of me. We had told each other our body counts in the past, and I wasn't bothered by it at all. She literally could have told me any number, and I think I would have been fine with it as long as it was the truth. But now that I know not only did she lie about the number of men she'd been with, but the fact that half of those men were guys I knew quite well and considered friends destroyed me. I eventually told her how I felt when she blew up at me one day for not wanting to have bedroom intimacy with her. She started crying again and asked if we should cancel the wedding. I said we should consider it but not act on anything yet, hoping the way I was feeling was just a phase and that I would eventually get over it. The last thing I wanted was for my friends and family to ask why we weren't getting married anymore and for me to have to explain the things that had happened. We agreed to go to couples counseling together with the goal of fixing our relationship and getting married on the date we had set before that happened. We found couples counseling to be very helpful, and one of the best things we both liked about our sessions was that we were able to verbally express what we were feeling and literally have it translated perfectly into a cohesive explanation by our counselor. After 10 sessions, we had been given a list of strategies to use together to mend our relationship, and I had been referred to a psychologist for some private sessions that were super beneficial. At this stage, everything was almost back to how it was before I was sent the messages, but I honestly never quite felt the same or trusted my wife again the way I used to. We did end up going through with the wedding, believing that my wife's past shouldn't affect my feelings toward her and that if we did end up breaking up, it would effectively mean her ex succeeded in his objective and got what he wanted. About a year after our wedding, my wife planned a trip to France to visit family and friends. I was originally meant to go with her but couldn't as I had just been given a promotion and had only been in the position about a month. While she was on her trip, I got another message on Instagram from her ex, saying, "She only likes me," followed by another explicit video of her. After watching for a few seconds, I just assumed it was another old video and blocked him. I planned to show my wife what he had sent but ended up totally forgetting about the whole thing. Fast forward to today. We have been married for almost 2 years now and have a baby on the way. During one of her obstetrician appointments that I attended with her, there was talk of her possible due dates and around what day she would have conceived. While sitting there and listening, I was doing the math in my head and realized something wasn't adding up. The period she would have had to conceive was when she was back in France visiting her family. I stayed quiet and convinced myself that I obviously wasn't calculating correctly because I've always been bad at math. But I remembered what her ex had sent me and had a gut feeling that something was very wrong. Eventually, my insecurities got the better of me, and I ended up watching the video he sent, trying to find any clues about when it was taken. Unfortunately, I concluded that the video must have been taken at some point when we were together, as I could see a distinct scar that she had given herself by waxing when we were on our honeymoon. After thinking about this for a while, I've decided not to confront her with what I know. I'm not going to ask friends or family for support. I'm not going to go to counseling. The fewer people that know, the better. I don't think I can live with the shame of people knowing that my wife is giving birth to another man's child. I'm going to wait for the baby to be born to see if it is mine before I make any final decisions. Thank you, everyone, who read everything I had to say. I really needed to get this out, and not being able to tell anyone what I was going through was driving me insane. Edit. I've had a few comments questioning the timeline. Our wedding was in September 2022. Her trip to France was in mid-December 2023, and she was there for about 5 weeks. The due date for the baby is in late September 2024. Update 1 month later. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who commented with advice, as well as those who criticized my thoughts and actions. Reading multiple perspectives about my situation helped open my narrow view and, I think, gave me a more balanced perspective. I'm not sure how I should write this update since there's so much information that was dropped on me, and I'm not sure how to put it into words. It honestly feels like my life was pulled out from under me, and I don't know how to comprehend it all at the moment. A lot of people criticized me for not telling my wife about the latest video, and many of you also suggested that I check the EXIF data to see what date the video was created. Following everyone's advice, I did both. First, I checked the metadata to see the creation date, which showed it was taken on January 1, 2024, at 1:18 a.m. It was sent to me on January 6, 2024. I kept in mind that people were saying metadata can easily be edited, so I didn't take the new information too seriously, even though it appeared to be a relatively recent video. After seeing the metadata, I sat her down on the couch to tell her about the video. I went into the conversation fully prepared with a list of things to say, which I had made with my therapist. I made sure not to make accusations or let anything I said sound like an accusation and was 100% prepared for her to blow up at me for not telling her about it sooner. My therapist gave me a guide on how I should deliver the information and how I should attempt to give her back control of the situation, by offering to show her the video, letting her watch it on her own, and deleting it in front of her when she was ready. I started by saying that I had received another explicit video from her ex and when I received it. Then I explained why I didn't tell her immediately after receiving it or after she got back from her trip. After giving my explanation, I asked her if she wanted to see the video, and she said yes. So I gave her my phone, and she pretty much immediately started the video as soon as I handed it over, which didn't give me a chance to get up and leave the room to let her watch it on her own. As soon as I heard the audio from the video, I immediately stood up and was turning to walk to a different room when she grabbed my pant leg and started profusely apologizing. I said there was nothing to apologize for since this was from before she met me, and that I should be the one apologizing to her for keeping it from her. She asked me why I decided to tell her now, and I told her the truth about my concerns regarding the due date and how it didn't quite make sense in my head. That's when she lost it. She grabbed my hand and kept saying it was a mistake, and that she wasn't thinking straight because she was drunk. My heart just dropped, and I knew instantly what she meant by her repetitive ramblings. I told her to tell me exactly what happened or I'd leave immediately. Long story short, she cheated on me when she went on her trip to France with her ex, the one who was sending me the screenshots and videos. They ended up hooking up after catching up at a New Year's Eve party they both attended. They're from a small town in central France with a population of only a few thousand. Apparently, they had seen each other at the local supermarket a few days after her arrival in her hometown. My wife and her ex are from the same friendship group, they went to the same kindergarten, primary school, middle school, and high school, which is how they ended up at the same New Year's Eve party. She also told me that her ex had admitted to hacking into her Facebook account to access the video she had shared with her other exes. Although calling what he did hacking makes it sound quite sophisticated, she hadn't changed her password since high school, and he still knew it when he gained access to all her accounts. So effing dumb. She begged me not to divorce her and tried to bargain with me, promising it would be the only time she'd ever cheat, promising she'd be the best wife to me, letting me hook up with as many women as I'd like, and even stooping so low as to offer intimate acts. I said I would only consider staying if she did two things: give me her phone so I could go through her messages, and agree to a paternity test. She instantly agreed to the paternity test but was a bit more hesitant about handing her phone over. However, she eventually agreed. While looking through her phone, I found more evidence that she cheated on me on New Year's Day, as well as evidence of another instance of cheating on a different date. By this point, I had already made up my mind about the relationship and just left. I'm currently staying at a hotel and will be moving into an apartment I had been trying to rent out for a while. I've spoken to both my solicitor and my wife and have agreed to attend the mandatory counseling required for me to proceed with the divorce, which will start in October. We've also agreed to get the paternity test done after the baby is born, and I bought plane tickets for my in-laws to come to Australia earlier than originally planned so they can look after their daughter. Second update 3 months later. It's been quite a while since my last post, and over the last month, I've had so many people asking for an update on my life, specifically about the results of the paternity test. A lot has changed since my last update, especially regarding the living arrangements with my wife. I can happily say that I am the father. I was with my wife in the hospital birthing suite when my son was born and stayed with her for the 5 days in the maternity ward. We got a paternity test, even though I was fairly sure he was mine when he was born. He looks like a bigger-eyed version of me as a newborn. About a week after getting the swabs done, the positive parentage results came back. Before my son was born, my wife and I had been living separately, with our only interactions being her sending me daily messages wishing me well and saying goodnight. After my son was born, we were still living apart, but I would go over every day to help feed and change him. We still had minimal interactions and would only really talk to each other once a week during our mandatory marriage counseling sessions, which we had to attend to file for a divorce. We saw psychologists from 2 different clinics, and I felt like both were trying to gaslight me into thinking I was being unreasonable for wanting to divorce my cheating wife. One of them even said that I shouldn't expect a modern marriage to be completely monogamous in this day and age. The first sessions of counseling at the first clinic seemed pretty standard, a lot of talking about how we felt, with the counselor providing prompts to help us communicate. If the sessions had continued like that, it would have been fine. However, when the counselor suggested we should accept the idea of bringing other people into the bedroom to better understand and connect with one another, I started looking for a different psychologist. The second psychologist we saw spent 2 sessions trying to convince me that it's normal for married couples to have bedroom intimacy with people outside the marriage and that it would be selfish of me to make the baby grow up without a father figure at home, even if he wasn't mine. This was before we got the paternity test results back. From that moment on, I decided there was no point in continuing marriage counseling. I told my wife I'd put the divorce proceedings on hold only if she agreed to sign a postnup, which she immediately signed as soon as I presented it. My plan is to wait a year before filing for divorce without any restrictions or the mandatory marriage counseling. At least now my assets are somewhat protected. Currently, I have moved back in with my wife, but we are still sleeping in separate rooms. I decided to move back in to make it easier for me to spend time with my son and also to be available to look after him when my wife and her parents need a break. After being with him for what is now almost a month, I've decided to be physically present in my son's life and help raise him. I believe it's my duty as his biological father to give him the best life possible, no matter the discomfort I feel in having to interact with his mother. What I'm trying to figure out now is how this will be possible after the divorce and how it will impact his emotional and mental development. Are there other people out there who are raising their children this way, and if so, how are you coping with the arrangement? Thank you to everyone who is concerned about my love life, but nothing is happening. I haven't thought about dating or anything else since finding out about my wife's cheating. Edit. I'm still going to get a divorce. I'm just waiting until the courts allow me to file without mandatory marriage counseling. I've also made my wife sign a postnuptial agreement so I can protect as much of my assets as possible when we divorce.